don't think anybody would have guessed it. The thing for me here is I think it's a realization of whose team this really falls under, right? Because it rightfully has always been Austin Matthews' team ever since he was drafted first overall. Let's be honest here, right? When Tavares came here, yes, that was a big moment for this team, right? But Austin Matthews was the ceiling. He was the guy. So when it really just cements is this is his team, and in a way it allows him to kind of also take that mantle of it being his team, right? Like it's one thing when you're the best player, but it's also the other when it's the best player and the captain. And I think, and the other thing too is you look around the league, you look at teams with the best like their best players, Sidney Crosby, Connor McDavid. Those guys are the captain. It's clearly their team. So I think that's for the Leafs realizing like we need to take this direction under Austin Matthews. He is the one that's here. Now he's not signed the longest out of all the guys, but he is here. He's making the commitment to be here. This is something that comes with it is being that leader, and they felt like this was the right time to do it.
From my perspective, what I think is that this is basically the promise that was made to John Tavares was that when he came here, he wasn't coming here to make it so the Leafs couldn't afford to have the young guns that he knew were very talented. And he told the Leafs, I'm not coming here. If you don't keep those guys, I want you to keep those guys. So part of the reason why I think it's not so difficult for John Tavares to do this is because he's the one who suggested that they should stay here. And Austin, of course, Matthews was the primary player in that circle of young guns that they brought in. And so what we're really seeing, I hate making references to Disney movies, but it is the circle of life that's going on here. It basically is. We've got John Tavares, who came here in the prime of his career. And he's been quoted as saying, I came here not to be the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs, but to win a Stanley Cup. In other words, he's reminding people what his priority is. And he's saying quite boldly and frankly, pun intended, that his priority here is to be on a Stanley Cup champion. So, I don't think this is a big deal. I think this is one of those situations, guys, where 9 years ago, we were just waiting for this shoe to drop. We just didn't know when it would.
I think the big one here, too, you look at John Tavares, he might be the most low maintenance, like high paid player I've ever seen. He obviously, maybe some people will infer him reading a statement one way. I just think that's just how he is. Like John Tavares, even keel. Like I've never seen him ever show emotion in the way that would suggest that he's unhappy about where things are going with the team, or he's unhappy with. Let's talk about what happened this past year. At times, being thrown down the lineup to be the third line center, right? Having to move off center to be a winger, right? Never once did I hear him complain about it. Never once was there rumblings that maybe he'd be unhappy with that. It just goes to show that he knows what's right for the team, and what's right for the team is doing whatever he feels is necessary for the team. Right. And to me, that's like his goal is simple. As you said, it's to win the cup. It's not to inflate his ego. It's not to to me, it's not like he's trying to use the Leafs to, one day get another contract somewhere else, like some other players have done. Like this is where he wants to be. Like when everyone's talking about his future, this is where he wants to be. I can't see him going anywhere else. I can't see him playing anywhere else, even if they've maybe have told him, but you're not going to be making the same money. You're not going to be having the same role. I don't think that matters to him. And it's clear now the fact that he was front and center, handing Austin Matthews the jersey right there on the stage. Like, I don't think the Leafs do this if John Tavares doesn't give the 100%. He's all in to do this.
Aaron, there isn't a player, I think, as much as if I can point at Leaf fans and say, is there a person in Toronto or that loves the Toronto Maple Leafs that has any more reason, anybody who's played for the Leafs, anybody who's a fan of the Maple Leafs, is there a person or a player that deserves to be frustrated, upset, to David's point, angry more than John Tavares? Is there anyone? I don't think so.
Maybe Morgan Riley.
Maybe Morgan Riley. I'll grant you that. But I guess with Morgan Riley, he was already here. You know, Tavares came here to win. But, you know, that is not, I don't disagree with your statement.
But I mean, at the end of the day, John has said this several times himself. He's not here to be the captain. He's not here to do anything other than try to win. And, you know, David, as you mentioned, he has been up and down the lineup before. He's been perfectly willing to take that role. I think, you know, at the end of the day, he is where he wants to be, and he's going to do his damnedest to try to make sure that the team does succeed.
Thanks for coming here, David. David's got some personal stuff to do. He was so willing to help us out here and to come on. Final word on this, how it affects the rest of the team. Do you think this has an impact on the rest of the team? Is there an impact? How does this play out? You know, he's got friendships with Marner and you know, he's of the same generation as Marner and Nylander. It's an interesting situation.
For me, I want to see, does he take a different tone? Like, I don't think it's going to change Austin Matthews' plays per se, but maybe it's just his mentality and how he rallies the team together. Maybe it's a little different. Now that he's the captain, he might feel he has to take it more upon himself for everyone to follow his lead, right? Sometimes when you don't want to step on the other captain's toes, right? Now he's the captain. Everyone's got to follow his lead. So I'm curious to see how that changes for him.
Aaron, on this topic, final word.
I just like to see everything work out. I know that the season has the potential to go sideways in the most colossal way possible, but at the same time, with the willing transfer of power from John to Austin, there is, I think, and from what I've seen, the prevailing sentiment online is this is a good thing, and it was perhaps a bit overdue. So we'll see where they go from here.
For me, the rest of the players, the ones at least, you know, his age, even though they've both been there together with this, you know, the top group of players that they have, which you can throw Riley in there as well, and the reputation of the Maple Leafs, they both shared in the time that they were here. But here's the thing. The Leafs, by doing this, have bought themselves some time. Now they've got a much younger man, the captain of the team, that they want to win a Stanley Cup. I think they've extended the amount of time they have to do it, because now you're looking at it not in the sense of a career of Tavares, John Tavares. You're now looking at it in the career sphere of Austin Matthews, which probably adds another 4 or 5 years to the pressure for the Leafs to win the Cup. So in that sense, they bought an opportunity for themselves, the Leaf organization, to buy themselves some more time. My concern is the time that they buy themselves, is it just going to be more of the same? And that's what concerns me. And it'll only look like a good idea, and then Matthews will be, you know, doing what he can. No one can doubt how hard he tries. He's probably been the most improved player with the Leafs, especially defensively, as far as I can tell anyway, from what I see.
No, I don't think it changes that in my opinion. But yeah, somebody I was talking to about this, it's like, does this really change really what has been missing for this team, right? That's one thing. No, it doesn't. But it's I think it's a realization that, you know, things are slowly like I don't think the Leafs wanted to do anything drastic. It was clear that way, because really there was no reason to do it, given that this season there's a lot that has to change at some point with all the contracts being discussed. So we'll kind of see how things work from here. I think there's opportunity for this team to look a little different there are ways that they can be different, but at the end of the day, yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see how it all folds.
It sure is. And good luck with your friend picking him up at the airport. I hope everything works out for his dad. David's helping somebody. The story, I won't get into the story, but let's just say, David, you're always there for people, and just another time you're there for them, just as you were for us. This, not so much as what you're doing behind the scenes. Thanks for doing that. People need friends like you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Frank.
You're welcome. Okay, Aaron, let's move on to the other stuff that we're doing. And we'll start by going to the Canadian Football League, which is one of our favorite topics. And so let's begin with the first story out there, and that is Nathan Rourke, another big story in sports. He signs with the BC Lions. He is now earning the most money of any player in the Canadian Football League.
So that's got to upset Chad Kelly. Hopefully he'll be able to come back off his suspension shortly, so he can continue to earn his money. But yeah, getting Nathan Rourke back for the BC Lions is going to be a huge boost for them. They are going to be moving forward now with not only Nathan Rourke, but also Vernon Adams Jr., who has turned out to be an absolutely wonderful quarterbacking surprise for them, because he's consistent and he gets the job done. The really neat thing is I think Nathan's going to find himself slotting in exactly where he left off when he left the league. I know that he had spent a lot of time trying to get himself picked up in the NFL. Between January and up to the end of last week, he'd spent time with the Jags, the Patriots, the Giants, and the Atlanta Falcons, even getting some playing time there in preseason games. But the great news is he's back on Canadian soil now, and I have a feeling that the CFL game might be better suited to his talents than the NFL game.
Well, I think we can say that considering when he left and how the terms that he established as far as his talent and ability, it wasn't enough to get him a job in the NFL. I see that situation as Rubik's Cube. I mean, I don't understand at all how he never got a chance. I don't know what it is that he didn't do for the coaching staffs that he introduced himself to. We saw him in a couple of exhibition games. In one exhibition game, he looked outstanding. He made some big plays, but it didn't seem to get him any further ahead as far as making it to at least a backup role. And then worse, on staying with the team. Well, you know what? Nathan Rourke is a great talent, one that the Canadian Football League is more than willing to take back. And the BC Lions, after 3 straight losses, they need some changes made. So it's a perfect timing for him to come back into the Canadian Football League and the BC Lions, who are hosting the Grey Cup this year. So let's be clear. The BC Lions want to be in that game, and they haven't played the last 3 weeks like they belong in that game. I suspect a little that scoring might not be a problem for BC anymore.
Well, I'm certainly hoping that it won't be a problem for them. I mean, at 5-4-0, they're sitting right behind Saskatchewan at 5-3-1. So that is obviously, there's very obviously a step that they need to take. Hopefully Rourke will also bring some stabilization to their road games, because they're 2-4-0 on the road, and that can't continue, especially if they want to be making the playoffs and getting to the promised land. So that's an important thing to keep an eye on for sure.
The other shoe dropped, and they dropped. That is, BC dropped 2 quarterbacks, Dolegala and Armstrong.
Yeah. So I don't know if anybody didn't see this one coming, but I mean, obviously, when you're bringing in a talent like Nathan Rourke, you have to make room from somewhere.
And the contract. Don't forget the contract.
Yeah, that's part and parcel of it, right? Not only do you have to make room on the roster itself, but you have to make room under the cap. And it's not like Dolegala hasn't been effective for them.
Somebody will pick him up.
He's thrown for 2,953 yards and 12 touchdowns over 3 seasons. He appeared in 9 games, but only started once, throwing for 158 yards with no touchdowns or turnovers. He's managed to play clean. It's just that he's been slightly overshadowed by the quarterbacks that they have. Armstrong wasn't really a surprise either. I mean, he was a bit of an emergency signing after Adams's junior's injury, but he didn't actually play a snap for the Lions. So, I mean, he'll probably pick up somewhere. It's just it's just a matter of when.
Yeah, talk to us about the Elks signing a DB.
Yeah, so they picked up Jeremy Dominique. He's a national defensive back. He's appeared in 29 games over 2 seasons with the Green and Gold in 2022 and 2023, before being released prior to training camp earlier this year. Originally a 6th-round pick of the Elks in 2022, he has 16 total tackles and 2 forced fumbles. There is the possibility that he'll be in the lineup when they take on the Ticats at Tim Hortons Field this Saturday, but I'm not holding my breath on that for the time being.
Well, the Elks are looking pretty good, and they made a couple extra additions.
Yeah, they added national offensive lineman Jacob Schott and American wide receiver DeMarcus Adams to their practice roster. Again, it's like they're stocking up for a little more depth. I know that as we get past the halfway part of the season, injuries become a more prevalent issue, especially in the CFL. And because there aren't as many teams, there aren't as many bye weeks, so it's important for them to make sure that they've got the depth to keep going.
Absolutely. Riders did some business too.
Yeah, they've announced on Monday that they signed American offensive lineman Gene DeLance and American linebacker Aubrey Miller Jr. DeLance signed with Chicago Bears as an undrafted free agent after the 2022 draft. He also spent time with the Cardinals and Green Bay Packers and attended camp with the Packers in 2023. Miller played 5 games with the Elks so far this season, earning 4 special teams tackles. Prior to the CFL, he was in training camp with the Dolphins, where he played two preseason games and got 2 tackles there. So they're adding a little bit of depth again as we get towards the midway part of the season. This is where injuries do start to become more prevalent.
Let's talk about the Jays and George Springer.
I don't know if you happened to see the game, but I have a feeling that George was right to get a little bit upset with the home plate umpire. On the replays, you can see the ball clearly hit his back or his right foot, which is his back foot, and you can see his toe move on the replay. The umpire, however, decided that his call on the field was going to stand, and Springer didn't like that. There are rumors as to what exactly was said, but I do know that John Schneider and Vladdy Guerrero Jr. had to come off the bench to restrain George. He was a little bit upset. We'll be keeping an eye on this just to see if there's any fines or suspensions coming from MLB.
Let's talk about Hockey Canada and ex-junior players in the news.
Yeah, for all the wrong reasons. But just so you're aware, the 5 players who were accused of sexually assaulting a woman after a London, Ontario gala in 2018 will stand trial beginning in September 2025. A couple of those players have already signed and are going to be playing in the KHL in the interim. As for the remaining 3, we're not sure what's going to be happening with them yet. Michael McLeod and Cal Foote were with the New Jersey Devils. Dylan Dubé was with the Flames, and Carter Hart was with the Flyers. Former NHLer Alex Fermenton was playing in Switzerland at the time that the charges were announced. All the players have pleaded not guilty, so we're up to speed on this, and have requested a jury trial. They waived their right to a preliminary hearing, which has sped up the court process. McLeod has signed with Astana Boris in Kazakhstan, and Dynamo Minsk has Dylan Dubé on their rosters. Now, none of these players have actually been disciplined by the NHL. I want folks to be aware of that. But Gary Bettman has said he would allow the court process to play out before deciding whether to take any disciplinary action against the players.
And they're not playing in the National Hockey League, so really, it would be an abstention, whatever they decided to do. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the Oilers, and apparently there's new details that prevented offer sheets.
Yeah, so Stan Bowman was recently hired as the Edmonton Oilers' new GM, but he's in a bit of a pickle here because 2 of his team's players were targeted in offer sheets by the St. Louis Blues, specifically Philip Broberg and Dylan Holloway. Signed 2-year offer sheets valued at $4.58 and $2.29 million, respectively. The Oilers now have 7 days to either match or accept compensation for one or both players. In the meantime, St. Louis has actually been active on the trade front, picking up a couple draft picks in order to send back to Edmonton as compensation for offer-sheeting these players. We know St. Louis has the cap room, but you know, the Oilers should have had contract extensions done for Broberg and Holloway during the regular season, and they wanted to as far back as December and January to get them under contract. But unfortunately, the decision to not sign them could prove to be one of Ken Holland's biggest missteps as part of Ken Holland's tenure in Edmonton, because they were unable to get these players signed. They're now facing their offer sheets.
Let's talk about the Flames and a couple of signings for them.
Yeah, so Jan Kuznetsov and Adam Klapka have both been signed to one-year deals. Jan Kuznetsov is a defenseman, and Adam Klapka is a forward. They've both been signed to one-year, two-way deals, which can see them go up and down between the Calgary Wranglers and the Calgary Flames. Both players are going to be making $775,000 at the NHL level.
So Nicholas Robertson wants to leave Toronto, and a landing spot could be Pittsburgh Penguins offer sheet. What's up with that?
Yeah, well, Pittsburgh has also been picking up some draft picks in trades with St. Louis, who also offer sheeted those two players from Edmonton. So you can see where this is going here. The Penguins acquired Cody Glass, a 2025 third-round draft pick, and a 2026 sixth-round draft pick from the Nashville Predators in exchange for Jordan Frasca. The reason why I tell you about that trade is because whatever they offered to Nick Robinson is going to have to be compensated by those draft picks that basically they've just picked up. Now, Nick Robinson is a Dubas guy, and everybody knows that Dubas loves his guys. So that means that they now have all the pieces in place where if Robertson does want out of Toronto, they can offer sheet him to get him out of there.
Absolutely. Looking at the Olympics, Iman Khalif's cyberbullying criminal complaint has a couple of people targeted in that. Tell us about that.
So after the whole outcry about questions as to her gender, Iman Khalif went on to win Olympic gold in boxing. She now has a lawyer, and the lawyer representing her has confirmed to Variety that Elon Musk and J.K. Rowling, two of her most prominent critics on social media during her gold medal winning campaign in Paris, were to be named in a criminal complaint filed to French authorities over alleged acts of aggravated cyber harassment. Now, the lawsuit itself was actually filed against X, which under French law means that it was filed against unknown persons. This ensures that the prosecution has all the latitude to be able to investigate all people, including those who may have written hateful messages under pseudonyms. J.K. Rowling and Elon Musk are named in the lawsuit, amongst others. Trump also tweeted about it. So whether or not he is named will be looked into as part of their prep, as part of the prosecution.
Yeah, that'd be very interesting. Why won't breakdancing be in the Olympics in 2028, Aaron? And that'll be in California and LA.
Yeah, I kind of thought it would be interesting if it were to continue to LA, because certainly there is a great big West Coast breakdancing scene as well as an East Coast breakdancing scene. But the spokesman for the International Olympic Committee confirmed that breaking won't be featured in the 2028 Olympics. It's ironic, obviously, in the fact that it's being hosted in LA and the sport has flourished there. But, based on what they saw in the Paris Olympics, they didn't feel that it would be a big enough draw to continue it. They actually announced that it wouldn't be included in the 2028 Olympics a few years ago. The IOC announced 28 sports that had been approved for the 2028 games, and breaking was not on that list at that time. So it's one of those things where the World Dance Sport Federation, who are the governing body for breakdancing, are disappointed with the LA 28 decision. They're proud of everything that they've accomplished, but they can also understand why. There was a certain amount of negative attention that was brought to it during the 2024 Olympics in Paris. But it's one of those things where there's only a certain number of games that you can have and sports that you can have, and unfortunately breaking didn't make the list.
Austin Dillon in trouble with NASCAR. What the heck did he do?
So I don't know if you caught the race, but Austin Dillon was sitting in 32nd place when it came to the playoffs for NASCAR. In the second to last corner on the last lap of the race, Dillon actually managed to wreck two cars, specifically the cars of Joey Logano and Denny Hamlin, who were both ahead of him, so that he ended up finishing first. NASCAR reviewed the incident. He made deliberate contact with the back of Joey Logano's car to spin him out. And then when Denny Hamlin tried to get around the wreck, Austin Dillon came down the track and pit maneuvered basically Denny Hamlin into the wall to take first, which put him in the race. But NASCAR decreed that was dangerous driving. Therefore, he would be able to keep the win, but he would forfeit the championship points, which means he now has to win at least one of the last three races in order to actually make the playoffs.
Wow, that's amazing. That's a really interesting way of splitting the hair, I guess. Let's go to shenanigans and let's go into Canada and let's talk with the Crown making a case for conspiracy at the Freedom Convoy trial.
So this is something that we've been covering for quite a while now here. Tamara Litch and Chris Barber are co-accused of mischief, intimidation, and counseling others to break the law. And Barber is also accused of counseling others to disobey a court order. The Crown is now also alleging that the two were conspiring together so closely that evidence against Litch or Barber could actually apply to both of them. Crown lawyer Tim Radcliffe was reading aloud from text messages. In one exchange in particular, Tamara Litch asked Chris Barber to head over to the command center with her. They had a strategy to gridlock the city, but they didn't want to make those decisions independent of one another. They wanted to make sure that they were coordinating, which is where the whole conspiracy racket leads into.
Absolutely.
So,
let's stay in Canada. Industry and shippers brace for Canada rail stoppage. They fear a catastrophe. Can it be that bad, Aaron? Or are they?
Well, talks between the Canadian National Railway and CP Kansas City on one side and the Teamsters on the other have basically deadlocked at this point. Both sides are accusing each other of negotiating in bad faith. Rail companies have actually said they'll start locking out workers August 22nd if they can't reach a labor deal. Industry groups want the Liberal government of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to prevent a stoppage, noting that Canada's railways transport around $380 billion worth of goods annually. This would certainly put it under the headline of necessary services. It would greatly impact freight traffic between Canada and the States, which is not something that we really want to have happen. So it could potentially be a huge disaster, especially when it comes to shipping and to trade goods.
In Jasper, Alberta, it appears that homes and businesses are going to be brought back to life by their people that have them, but there's a phase-in kind of plan. Explain it, Aaron.
So for the time being, re-entry is to be limited to the town's eastern entrance, which is to be patrolled by RCMP officers tasked with turning away non-residents, rubberneckers, and photo seekers and the like. Jasperites will have to show proof of residence before receiving a re-entry guide and getting back into the town. Mayor Richard Ireland has said that residents have been concerned about visitors intruding on their privacy as they finally see what their homes look like, having not been able to go back in for at least a week. But it's going to be really, really tough, I think, for the 5,000 residents who are going to be coming back into the town to see what it looks like. So this is just sort of a way to limit the psychological damage and to reduce gawkers and the risk of injury.
Yeah, and give people the room and space to restart their lives. It's when your home is impacted the way it has been in Jasper, it's a tough thing to handle. So all best wishes to people in that situation. Also suffering from wildfires, Saskatchewan First Nations, they call for help because their community needed to be evacuated.
So a statement Tuesday from officials with the Peter Ballantine Cree Nation said that the Saskatchewan Public Safety Agency had actually refused to hire hundreds of qualified First Nations firefighters to help tackle the blaze near the community of 1800. Their reasoning, a lack of proper personal protective equipment. They said that the firefighters only had cotton overalls instead of Nomex fabric coveralls. The First Nations have access to the necessary gear, including hats and boots, and are also properly trained. But unfortunately, the Saskatchewan Public Safety Agency was not deploying them. So because of this, the nation's board has gone over and above to ask for help directly from the federal government. Now, it's all in an area about 430 kilometers northeast of Saskatoon, near the Manitoba-Saskatchewan border.
Another tough thing to deal with is storms, and they're hitting the prairie. Tell us about that.
Well, with summer vacation still going strong. Remember, summer doesn't end until September 22nd. Put away the pumpkin spice lattes. It's a slow-moving trough of weather that is going to bring widespread risk to Manitoba and Saskatchewan, in particular, looking anywhere from Prince Albert in Saskatchewan to Brandon, Manitoba. There's a corridor in there where it's a lot of slow moving thunderstorms. This can cause flooding and a lot of issues. Because it's a low pressure system, there is a possibility that it could stick around until the weekend. So if you hear the warnings, make sure that you take care.
And what about in Ontario, where we're getting a little bit of over here?
Yeah, Friday is going to be dry. At least that's what we've been told. We should even see some limited sunshine during the morning, but by Friday afternoon, it's going to become more cloudy and humid with an increasing threat of showers and thunderstorms during the afternoon and into the evening. Saturday is going to be bringing changeable conditions. It's going to be clouds mixed with some sunny breaks, but we'll also have occasional showers and thunderstorms with a risk for torrential downpours. So if you're out on the roads, make sure that you govern your speed accordingly. Make sure that you use your full headlighting and windshield wiper system while you're out there. Now, Saturday won't be a complete washout, but it will be disruptive for people planning outdoor activities across southern and eastern Ontario, including those in cottage country. Saturday night's going to be partly cloudy and humid. Sunday will be cloudy with sunny breaks, but there's also the possibility of a thunderstorm later in the afternoon. So take care of yourselves this weekend. Make sure you have an umbrella with you. Make sure that you drive according to conditions.
Now, hang on a second. Butter being stolen from Guelph? What? Guelph store? What?
I had a little bit of a double take myself when I saw this, but what we're looking at here is we're looking at approximately $800 worth of butter that has been stolen from two separate stores in Guelph. A man entered a store near Gordon and Clare in Guelph's South End and left with 2 cases of butter. Those 2 cases themselves were worth about $500. But later, about an hour after that, the same man walked into a store at Courtright in Edinburgh and filled 2 bags with butter valued at about $300 and fled the store. He was apparently in a white Toyota Corolla. The police are saying it's not clear if the 2 thefts are related, though they are strongly inclined to believe it is. This isn't actually the first butter theft in Guelph. Back in December, Guelph police arrested 3 men after over $1,000 worth of butter was stolen from a store in the city's South End. On December 24th, 2 men were seen taking a case of butter from the store. They checked nearby parking lots and found a vehicle near another grocery store. The 2 men with the case were inside the vehicle, and a third man actually came out of the store and approached the vehicle, so it looked like they were all converging. In total, about 144 sticks of butter and 17 containers of ghee, which is clarified liquid butter, were covered by officers. Those 3 individuals were charged with theft under $5,000.
Apparently, the security around the corn now that's in the store. No, that was just bad. I'm sorry. Oh boy, oh boy. Oh.
I know.
I don't know what else to say. This is a sad story. CHML 900 in Hamilton. is a Hamilton Tiger Cat TV radio station. They cover the Ticats, and real sad news here. Aaron, tell us about it closing.
So they actually posted an announcement online about the fact that they were closing down on Wednesday morning. By about 2 o'clock this afternoon, the station was actually off the air. That's how quickly it actually happened. They featured shows like Good Morning Hamilton with Rick Zamperin, Hamilton Today with Scott Thompson, and the Bill Kelly Show up until last year. The station actually opened in September 1927, and it would have been 97 years next month for this radio station. But unfortunately, Global News saw fit to shut it down. Lisa Polevsky, who's a reporter for CHML, posted on X saying that she was grateful for the chance to cover the city she loved. Tom McKay was a technical producer with CHML, and he posted online too, saying that it was his favorite job. It's a tough blow for local communities who, are sort of stranded in a hinterland between London, Ontario, and Toronto, and being able to get local news, because it's a vital thing. I mean, Chorus had cut about 500 employees there. They were expected to reduce everything by about 800 jobs compared with September of 2022. But Chorus, the company that operated CHML, has been making cuts as it faces financial issues. So it's unfortunate that it's finally come to this, and I'm hoping that the individuals who work there manage to find something quickly.
Yeah, Rick's a friend of mine on Facebook. Sorry to hear. It's a tough industry, and it's been made tougher as the internet gets stronger. Radio stations, local news, they're all suffering. And the sad part is local newspapers, local radio stations, local TV stations, because of what they are and in the environment that they work in, the importance of them being believable and legitimate, they have stronger forces that put them in the position where they need to be more careful what they say and be more straight. And now more and more we're getting news from places where the truth really isn't that important. It's about clicks, literally and figuratively. And it doesn't matter, how it's said. I've taken, I know this is a bit of a jump, but it really isn't, because this is something that I've come to the realization I've decided to do, and that is people on my Facebook who lie egregiously. Now, what I consider an egregious lie and what you consider an egregious lie, or someone else considers, could be different. But suffice it to say that if I accuse somebody of something and it is so insanely wrong and untrue, I just can't have you post stuff on my Facebook. I'm sorry. I believe in free speech, but I think the more this kind of stuff happens, radio stations like CHML that are basically going into the darkness, I think the more pressure there is on us to ensure the information we get is factual and true. And therefore, if we know somebody's not telling the truth, it's not about free speech. It's about common sense, truth, and honest conversation. That's what I want to get into. And I don't want to get into a debate with somebody who clearly doesn't have any intention of being truthful. They're just trying to push an agenda. I want them out of my life. They're not getting oxygen from me. And the more this kind of stuff happens, the more important it is for me personally in my world to eliminate people that I know are not being truthful and being egregiously. And that means really dishonest.
No, and I think that's the best thing that we can do for ourselves when things like this happen, is to make sure that the information that we are responsible for putting out there is as close to the truth as we can possibly make it. So I don't blame you for taking that stance. That is, something that I am trying to make myself more aware of and to be wary of, is this unnecessary proliferation of untrue information.
Well, I'll give you an example. Tim Walz is running for vice president under the Democratic ticket. I saw a post from somebody there saying that he's worth $140 million, and his daughter took money, for education. So the loan, so she was forgiven a loan for, I forget how much it was. And his explanation was, how could we allow that to happen when this guy's has $100.5 million? Well, unfortunately, oh my goodness, now I forgot the Forbes did a research thing to find out what his value is, what his financial status is, and he has his value is $1 million. That's what he has in assets. That's pretty much only for most of us. That's if you own your house, you have $1 million. And so that to me is why I think it's got to end. I got to, everybody. I'm not telling people out there to do what to do, but I'm just tired of the bullying, using lies and deceit, and you know what? The permission structure that we have by saying something like this, Aaron, and this is what I don't say anymore, and that's why I take people like that out. I don't say anymore, that's just him or that's just her. There's no reason to permit that kind of behavior on your page. You should, and that's, again, this is my opinion. I'm not telling people to do it, but I think it's refreshing when we start eliminating people who we know are dishonest, and then be able to have a serious conversation with people who are being, at least as far as we can tell, we haven't found otherwise, that are truthful. I think the conversations are more fruitful.
No, I definitely think you're on the right track with that one, Frank.
Okay, let's talk about, sorry about going on a tangent, guys.
No worries.
Quebec municipalities hit by remnants of tropical storm, more bad weather.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot more bad weather stories dominating the news cycle these days. I can't, for the life of me, figure out why. But yeah, there are actually 14 municipalities in Quebec that are currently under a state of emergency following torrential rain on Friday that dumped up to 175 milliliters of rain on Montreal through a large swath of the province. It's 175 millimeters, so 17 and a half centimeters. That is a lot of rain to come down in one day. Saint-Lin-Laurentide, a town of about 26,000, 45 kilometers north of Montreal, was one of them. Mathieu Maisonneuve said he slept less than 10 hours in total since Friday. There were roads that don't exist anymore, and there are images that will remain engraved in our memories for a long time. 250 people were trapped in their homes because of flooding on the roads. At least 100 homes in his area have sustained flood damage. At least 2 were destroyed. Emergency services have had to carry out search and rescue operations by boat in some areas because it was so flooded. This was actually supposed to hit Toronto, but bypassed us completely and just smacked the heck out of Quebec. La Macaza, a village in the Laurentians about 140 kilometers northwest of Montreal, said the storm knocked down utility poles and uprooted culverts. Roads have been heavily damaged there. It's going to be months of reconstruction for a lot of these places.
So Air Canada has a delay. Delay causes a couple to go into a hotel. They end up paying $1,700 for a night stay.
$1,700 for a one-night stay in Laval, Quebec. Air Canada refused to give them hotel vouchers after their flight was delayed. So Craig Sharp of Bay Roberts and his husband were traveling back from Newark Liberty International on Saturday when their flight to Montreal was delayed due to the aircraft experiencing an earlier delay. The Air Canada employees in Newark reassured the couple that their now 50-minute layover would be enough to clear customs and board their flight to St. John's, but unfortunately it wasn't. They obviously missed the flight. Air Canada didn't have any hotel rooms for passengers who missed the St. John's connection and who are now stranded in Montreal, forced to wait nearly 12 hours for the next eastbound flight. Sharp says that they called a hotel that had 30 rooms set aside for Air Canada passengers carrying vouchers, but the employees handling the delay said that they didn't actually have any vouchers to give them, which is an interesting situation. So we'll have to see how all of this drama plays out. But yeah, $1,455.63 for one night plus a $200 deposit. Now, and again, this is Montreal had just had a one-day hotel strike 2 days earlier, and there had been severe flooding over the weekend. So I can understand the idea behind surge pricing, but $1,400 for one night in Laval is a little bit ridiculous.
How do you say, oh my God, in French? No, never mind. Scientists discover Mars has oceans of water deep underground water on Mars.
Yep. NASA's InSight lander might have ended its mission a year and a half ago, but it's still transmitting data from its seismograph. There appears to be an ocean's worth of actual liquid water trapped under Mars's surface. For those who aren't aware, InSight touched down on Elysium Planitia in November 2018 up until November 2022. The lander was using its seismometers to record tremors known as Marsquakes. Using methods similar to how we discover what the interior of the Earth looks like, scientists use those Marsquakes to construct a detailed model of the inside of Mars. According to new researchers from scientists with the Scripps Institution for Oceanography and UCB, University of California, Berkeley, while the surface and shallow depths of Mars crust are dry and frozen, there is actually liquid water trapped in fissures deeper down. So there is the possibility there, provided the water doesn't freeze or just evaporate off, for Mars to actually support life.
Who declares Mpox outbreaks in Africa? Let me change that. World Health Organization, because the first way sounds like a question.
So the World Health Organization is actually declaring monkeypox outbreaks in Africa are a global health emergency. There have been more than 500 deaths as reported by the Africa Center for Disease Control and Prevention. The African CDC previously said monkeypox had been detected in 13 countries this year, and more than 96% of all cases and deaths are in the Congo. Cases are up 160%, and deaths are up 19% compared with the same period of time last year. There have been more than 14,000 cases and 524 fatalities so far. In 2022, the World Health Organization declared monkeypox to be a global emergency after it spread to more than 70 countries that had not previously reported mpox. This now is getting to the point where it could potentially be another pandemic if people don't take it seriously enough.
You think?
Yeah.
Okay, so WestJet is canceling up to 40, a lot of flights a day because of repair schedules.
So a couple weeks back, there were about 15 or 16 aircraft that were damaged by a hailstorm in Calgary that has caused several $100,000 worth of damage, and also shut down terminals 2 and 3 at the Calgary International Airport. In order to mitigate this, WestJet says it's currently canceling an average of about 50 flights a day. But it does expect the number of those canceled flights to go down as aircraft return to service it in a phased approach. The number of planes that they've grounded amounts to more than 10% of its entire fleet. This is, going to be an issue because airfares may go up in the immediate aftermath of the hailstorm. Because of the scale back in capacity, that's going to boost demand at other airlines, and that's in turn going to push up ticket prices during the peak summer travel season. The unfortunate side effect of having something like that happen is that there really is very little that you can do about it unless you're going to drive. So it's really unfortunate for those individuals that have booked flights and find them canceled, but here's hoping that those woes will sort themselves out shortly.
Aaron, thank you for doing this.
Hey, always glad to be here, Frank.
And thank you for joining us. For Aaron William Freeland, I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching Candid Frank live, airing Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 6 p.m. The show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For Candid Frank Live, other news, entertainment, and sports programming we offer, please check out SpanglishWorld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out Candid Frank Stanisci on YouTube. Ciao for now. Have a great day, everybody.